Picture this, a vibrant, chaotic mountain kingdom ruled by none other than Wukong, the Monkey King. Now, Wukong isn't your average ruler. He's a monkey with an ego the size of the heavens and a personality just as large. After mastering all sorts of martial arts and magical tricks, he decided that being just a king wasn't enough. He needed a title that truly reflected his greatness. So, what did he do? He named himself the Great Sage Equal to Heaven. Not exactly modest, right? But Wukong didn't care. He was all about making his presence known. If the heavens won't recognize my greatness, he thought, I'll just have to show them myself. Word of Wukong's self-given title soon reached the Jade Emperor, the head honcho up in heaven. At first, the Jade Emperor wasn't too worried. After all, heaven had its fair share of oddballs and egoists. But then he started hearing more stories about how this Monkey King was flaunting his new title, gathering an army of fellow monkeys, and declaring himself an equal to the gods. Something had to be done. Heaven's plan was simple: keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So they decided to give Wukong a job in heaven, but not just any job, a lowly one with a title that sounded important but wasn't. They appointed him Bima Wen, the official horse stable attendant of the celestial stables. At first, Wukong was thrilled. He thought his new position meant he was moving up in the world. Look at me, he boasted to anyone who would listen. The great sage equal to heaven, now part of the celestial bureaucracy. He strutted around the stables, imagining himself giving orders to celestial beings and handling affairs of cosmic importance. But it didn't take long for the truth to sink in. All this job really entailed was cleaning up after the celestial horses. And these weren't ordinary horses, they were massive divine creatures with appetites and, well, digestive systems to match. Wukong spent his days shoveling celestial horse manure, and he quickly realized that he wasn't there to make any important decisions. He was there to keep the stables clean. Wukong's anger started to bubble up. This was an insult. He was the great sage equal to heaven, not some stable boy. His pride was wounded, and his temper, always quick to flare, reached its boiling point. Deciding he'd had enough, Wukong threw down his rake and stormed out of the stables. "I'm done with this," he shouted to the heavens. "I'm going back to my mountain." And with that, he leapt onto a cloud and rode it back to Flower Fruit Mountain, swearing he'd never set foot in heaven again unless it was on his own terms. Back at Flower Fruit Mountain, Wukong gathered his subjects and made a grand declaration. "I have been mistreated and disrespected," he roared. "From now on, I answer to no one but myself. I am the great sage equal to heaven, and heaven can do nothing about it." His monkey army cheered, rallying around their rebellious leader, ready to follow him into any chaos he decided to create. Meanwhile, up in heaven, life continued as usual. The gods were preparing for one of their most anticipated events, the Queen Mother of the West's annual Peach Festival. This wasn't just any ordinary party. The peaches served at this festival were special. They granted immortality to anyone who ate them. Naturally, every deity wanted a taste. When Wukong heard about the Peach Festival and realized he hadn't been invited, he was livid. "How dare they exclude me," he fumed. "I am the great sage equal to heaven after all." In his mind, this was yet another sign of heaven's disrespect. They might have thought they could ignore him, but he was going to make sure they remembered exactly who he was. With a mischievous grin, Wukong transformed into a tiny bug and hitched a ride on a passing cloud headed straight for the heavenly peach orchard. Once there, he transformed back and took in the sight of rows upon rows of glowing, juicy peaches. Without a second thought, he began to feast, grabbing peach after peach, his anger melting away with each sweet, magical bite. But eating wasn't enough. After all, what's a party crasher if he doesn't make a scene? Wukong decided to take his chaos one step further. He barged into the festival hall, interrupting the festivities, and declared, "Look who decided to join the party. I hope you saved some peaches for me because I've already had my fill in the orchard." The gods and goddesses gasped in shock and outrage, but Wukong just laughed. "Next time, don't forget to invite the great sage equal to heaven," he shouted as he flipped over a banquet table for good measure. After wreaking havoc at the Peach Festival, Wukong wasn't done yet. His belly was full of immortal peaches, but he had heard whispers of even more potent treasures hidden within the halls of heaven. As he lounged around the now disheveled festival, his sharp ears caught the murmur of the gods talking about Laozi's alchemy lab, where the most powerful elixirs in existence were brewed. If the peaches were good, those elixirs had to be even better. With a sly grin, Wukong transformed into a tiny invisible flea and hopped onto the shoulder of a passing deity headed towards Laozi's quarters. He clung on tight, buzzing with excitement as the god made their way through the labyrinthine halls of heaven, finally arriving at the entrance of the alchemy lab. As soon as he entered, Wukong marveled at the rows of bubbling cauldrons and shimmering bottles. The air was thick with the scent of magic, a heady mix of ancient herbs and potent spells, making the room feel alive with energy. "This must be the good stuff," Wukong muttered to himself as he shifted back into his usual form. He pried open a golden jar and found it filled with glowing, multicolored pills, Laozi's famous 9-turn elixirs, said to grant eternal youth and vitality with just a single dose. Not one to be subtle, Wukong grabbed a handful of elixirs and tossed them into his mouth like candy. "Delicious," he exclaimed, feeling the power course through him with each chew. He quickly stuffed the rest into his pockets, thinking they might come in handy later. Not satisfied with just the elixirs, he also raided the lab's wine storage, drinking down vats of celestial wine until he was thoroughly intoxicated. Giggling to himself, he stumbled out of Laozi's lab, leaving behind a trail of empty bottles and missing elixirs. If heaven wanted to keep these safe, they should have hidden them better, he laughed, his voice echoing down the marble halls of the Celestial Palace as he staggered back towards Flower Fruit Mountain. Word of Wukong's rampage spread quickly through heaven. The Jade Emperor's face turned a dangerous shade of red as reports of the chaos at the Peach Festival, followed by the theft in Laozi's lab, reached his ears. "This is beyond tolerance," he shouted, slamming his fist onto the armrest of his throne. "This monkey has crossed every line." Heaven was in an uproar. The gods were furious, and the celestial generals were humiliated by their earlier defeat. Determined not to let Wukong make a fool of them again, the Jade Emperor ordered his strongest warriors, Erlang Shen, with his piercing third eye, and Neja, wielding his flaming spear, to lead the charge against the mischievous monkey. Meanwhile, back at Flower Fruit Mountain, Wukong was celebrating his heist with his monkey subjects, still feeling invincible from his peach and elixir-fueled spree. He pranced around, showing off his newfound strength, lifting boulders with one hand and uprooting trees with the other. His monkey army cheered, reveling in their leader's newfound power. But when Wukong saw the new army descending from the skies, led by Erlang Shen and Neja, he knew this wouldn't be a walk in the park. "All right, looks like they're sending the big guns now," Wukong said, his grin never wavering. He tightened his grip on his magical staff, the Rui Jingu Bang, ready for whatever came next. Let's see how they handle the great sage equal to heaven. The battle that followed was epic. Wukong transformed into a giant, swinging his staff with such force that it shattered mountains and caused tidal waves. Erlang Shen and Neja fought back fiercely, using their divine weapons and magic to counter his every move. The skies darkened, and the earth trembled as the clash of titans echoed across the realms. As the battle raged on, it became clear that neither side was willing to back down. Wukong's defiance had pushed the celestial forces to their limit, and despite their numbers and strength, they couldn't capture him. The Jade Emperor, now desperate, realized that this situation required someone far wiser and more powerful than any of his generals. He sent out a plea to the Western Paradise, asking for the assistance of the great Buddha. Within moments, the heavens parted, and Buddha himself descended from the clouds, radiating a calm yet overwhelming presence. "Wukong," Buddha called out, his voice gentle yet commanding, "why do you cause such chaos? Are you not satisfied with your life among the heavens?" Wukong, ever defiant, replied, "I just want to be recognized for my strength and my title, the great sage equal to heaven. I deserve my place among the immortals, but they keep treating me like a joke." Buddha nodded, understanding the monkey's frustration, but also knowing the danger of such unchecked ambition. "Very well," he said. "If you are truly as powerful as you claim, I will give you one chance to prove it. If you can jump out of my palm, I will acknowledge your title and let you be." Wukong, thinking this was an easy challenge, immediately agreed. "Ha! A mere palm? Watch me," he boasted, leaping high into the air, determined to prove himself once and for all. Sun Wukong soared into the sky, determined to leap out of Buddha's palm and prove his greatness once and for all. With each powerful thrust of his cloud somersault, he traveled thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Mountains and oceans flashed beneath him, and he laughed at how easily he would win this challenge. "I've got this in the bag," Sun Wukong thought. "There's no way a simple palm can contain the great sage equal to heaven." After what felt like a lifetime of soaring through the skies, Sun Wukong finally reached what he believed was the end of the universe. Before him stood 5 colossal pillars, reaching far into the heavens. "This must be it! I've reached the edge!" he exclaimed, feeling a rush of triumph. To mark his victory, he decided to leave a sign of his presence. He plucked a hair from his head, blowing on it to transform it into a giant brush. With a flourish, he wrote on the middle pillar, "Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, was here." Satisfied with his mark of conquest, he turned around and made the long journey back to Buddha's palm, eager to show off his accomplishment. Landing back on Buddha's hand with a dramatic flourish, Sun Wukong crossed his arms and grinned. "Well, I guess you can see I've traveled far beyond your palm, haven't I?" Buddha, however, simply smiled, a serene and knowing expression on his face. He gently opened his fingers to reveal the very writing Sun Wukong had left on what he thought were distant pillars. In reality, those pillars were merely Buddha's fingers, and Sun Wukong had never left the Buddha's palm. Realization struck Sun Wukong like a bolt of lightning. "No, this can't be. But before he could protest further, Buddha's hand closed around him, and with a swift motion, he pressed Sun Wukong beneath a mountain conjured from his 5 fingers. The mountain, known as the 5 Elements Mountain, pinned the Monkey King down with the weight of earth, water, fire, metal, and wood. Trapped beneath the crushing weight of the 5 Elements Mountain, Sun Wukong roared in frustration, his voice echoing through the heavens. No matter how much he struggled, he couldn't escape. The mountain held him fast, unyielding to all his strength and magic. He was stuck, and for the first time in his life, the great sage equal to heaven couldn't fight his way out of a problem. As the dust settled, Buddha spoke softly, yet with authority. "Sun Wukong, your pride and defiance have brought you to this end. Reflect on your actions and the chaos you have caused. Perhaps one day you will understand the true meaning of being great. Until then, you will remain here." And with that, the heavens returned to their calm, leaving Sun Wukong alone beneath the mountain, a once proud and rebellious great sage, now humbled by his own hubris.